Thank you very much for joining me here today. Today is a little workshop on the secret to living a happy and healthy life with your dog. Um, in this presentation, I will, whether you're at the beginning of the journey with your new dog or puppy, or trying to change some less desirable behaviors with that your dog is doing, I'll be teaching you the foundations of what you need to know to create a happy and healthy life with them. This presentation is perfect for puppy owners, anyone that's just brought a dog of any age into their life and looking to set those new foundations for the future, anyone experiencing unwanted behaviors, or anyone whose dog is showing signs of stress, anxiety, fear, or frustration. My core belief is that we bring dogs into our lives to make us and them happy. There is no one correct way to do this, but I do believe that a healthy dog is a happy dog, and a happy dog is bloody great to live with. And the sad reality is that we are seeing more and more people struggling with their dogs in this modern world. We're seeing more dogs on medication and more dogs in shelters. And medication is not necessarily a bad thing, but ultimately there's just so many on meds that it kind of suggests that there is a wider issue. And it's not for the lack of love or trying to get it right from dog guardians. I can see people love their dogs more and more than ever before. They're including them in their lives more so than ever before. But we're still seeing the dog struggle with this lifestyle change. It is a lifestyle change. The way we live with our dogs has changed more in the last 20 years than it did in the previous 200. I think we could probably all agree with that, how quickly things have evolved with our dogs. We're seeing them live in our homes instead of in the gardens. We're seeing them have to meet and greet more people and dogs. There's more dogs living in close proximity. In my small apartment building, I think there's 7 dogs, and there aren't that many more apartments than there are dogs. There's just a lot of pressure on the dogs socially, and that means that there's more pressure on us to try to get it right and to kind of manage their behavior and create appropriate behaviors in the real world. And as things have changed quickly, traditional information just has not kept up with that rate of change. What was taught by dog trainers 20 years ago, or even 5, is just no longer appropriate in the current living conditions. And the old information is just setting people up to fail. And we see 3 common things over and over again that ultimately keep getting suggested over and over again, but we just need to avoid them. And they are, be the pack leader, be the alpha, dominate your dog, tire your dog out in the notion that, a tired dog's a happy dog, a good dog, or obedience training is going to fix your dog's problems. We see these narratives being pushed out all the time, and it is hard to know who to turn to. The internet is littered with conflicting information. You've got old mate in the dog park telling you all about how, what worked for him. Oh, you just pin him on the floor, mate, that sort of shit. And you see so many anecdotal stories working for individual cases. But at the end of the day, these people that have had maybe dogs all their life, it doesn't mean that they actually know what they're talking about. I've had teeth all my life. It doesn't make me a dentist. You've probably tried, or at least thinking of trying, at least one of those 3 things, if not a combination of all of them. And, when we're working with people, we normally see that they've tried at least one of them or are trying multiple things like that. They're exercising their dog more. They're, trying to work on training. Or they're even just trying to be bossy, trying to assert themselves over the dog. One of these 3 things, in most of the cases that we work with, people are already trying, but they don't work. And it's not that those 3 things are unimportant, right? Healthy leadership, absolutely important. A physically healthy dog and body, really important. Being able to communicate, really important. So we're not taking away their importance, but it is essential that they're done right, and that we understand that they're not the full picture. Because unhealthy leadership creates problems. Unhealthy exercise creates problems. Unhealthy communication creates problems. And there are so many other factors to getting it right for our dogs that are just as, if not more important than those three things. So my goal here today is for you to know that you can live that happy, healthy life with your dog without having to try to dominate them, without having to burn yourself, constantly getting your dog involved with absolutely everything, constantly keeping them busy and just trying to keep up with them, and without having to micromanage them with obedience training. But why? Listen to me. Right. So, if you don't know who I am already, my name's Ian Shivers, and I'm the founder of Bondo Behaviorist. I am the co-founder of Canine Caregivers, which is our online education portal for dog owners. That I've partnered up with my friend Dominique, another amazing dog trainer and behaviorist. And I'm the co-founder of Muttley Pro, where I actually coach other professionals in their business and on training and behavior as well. And I've been helping dogs, people and their dogs, since I was just 21 years old when I started part-time. And I am not 21 anymore. So it's been many, many years working in this industry. And since I founded Bondo Behaviorists in 2015, we have helped over 4,000 families and their dogs. We've got a podcast out there called Unleashed and Unhinged, just to give as much free information to as many people as possible on dog training and behavior. I'm a qualified trainer and behavior consultant. I've studied applied behavior analysis, applied ethology, dog behavior, and I'm a licensed family dog mediator. And like I say, I actually coach people around the world. I teach people more and more how to understand dog behavior and an approach to dog training that is so much more than those three factors that we've already covered. So my traditional approach, so I'm trying to avoid that traditional approach of the dog training model. Well, what I'm trying to do is focus on finding practical solutions by working towards the mental, emotional, and physical health of the dog and caregivers and prevent and resolve behavioral issues. So my fundamental belief, like I said earlier, is a healthy dog is a happy dog, and a happy dog's great to live with. And I've always got that in the back of my mind when I'm trying to work towards that. So anyone that has worked in the industry before, there's a good chance that they've probably taught one of those three things, if not all three of those things, um, to people, their clients in the past, and a lot still are. I used to. When I first started, I was so I still am full of enthusiasm, but really green and really keen to get it right. And I obviously still wanted to help people and their dogs, of course. But I think, well, I know I was looking at it the wrong way. I was looking at it as the behavior as a problem to be fixed rather than a symptom of the problem. So I was really quick to kind of show off. So this is some red flags to maybe look out for when you're working with professionals. Like if they're really good at training your dog, but they're not very good at teaching you, that's a red flag. That's something I used to do all the time. Look how good I am at dog training. And it doesn't actually help people that much. Yeah, it's great being able to see what your dog's potential is, but that's just a minor part. And it looks great and it looks flashy in the session, but it's not that helpful. And I was all too ready to do that in my youth. I was far too quick as well to correct and the dog if the dog did something we didn't like, right? So I was definitely too ready to use punishment as a correction and shut their behavior down. I was really rigid as well. I didn't have the flexibility. I didn't understand as much as I do today. And so inevitably, I was less flexible on my approach. And I was very rigid with my exercise plans and training plans. I was over reliant on obedience and again would fall back on correction if the dog was disobedient. And I really did think back then that it was all about how we trained them and as a means to, helping people with their dogs. And like I say, I was trying to solve the wrong problem. So from the dog's perspective, I was getting it wrong because I wasn't addressing why the behaviors were happening in the first place. I wasn't creating meaningful or sustainable solutions that were actually going to long term resolve why I was there in the first place. From the Guardian's perspective, I wasn't teaching them really how to create what the actual goal was, which was just to help the happy home, right? Create that healthy balance, create um, living conditions that are really enjoyable for everyone. Whereas I was definitely just leaning more on dog must comply. And I was teaching skills that actually may have been fostering an unhealthy relationship. And I was teaching activities that I believe were right because society said they were normal practices rather than looking at the individual dog. I'm going to unpack that again a bit more in a moment. So, you know, what are the problems with these three common mistakes? Because people are doing them all the time, and a lot of people are absolutely fine. I know that, but it doesn't mean that they're thriving. So let's break that down. So my first influence in dog training was The Dog Whisperer, unfortunately, that TV show. That yeah, it's led me down the wrong path. It got me interested, which I'm very grateful for, but quickly learned do not follow that as a model. But at the time, I thought, yeah, we had to become the alpha, I had to become pack leader. I still thought we had to assert our dominance over the dogs, and that dominance was causing unwanted behaviors. So, what's the issue with trying to dominate? This narrative typically promotes a very unhealthy style of leadership. So, what we see is people, if we think that the dog is trying to dominate, we see people massively misunderstand the dog's intentions, first and foremost, which is not a very good footing for trying to resolve unwanted behaviors or set our dogs up for the future. So, things to know, our dogs' behavior is a symptom of what they're experiencing. It's a product of their legs, and I'll unpack that shortly. And legs is an acronym, by the way, learning, environment, genetics, and self. It is not them trying to be naughty, stubborn, spiteful, or vindictive. This misunderstanding, like I say, it really leads us down the wrong path from the very beginning. It creates a mindset of, well, us against them. If you're not going to comply, I'm going to correct you. I'm going to hold you accountable. And it really takes the accountability away from the guardian. So it is very convenient. And I get its appeal to a lot of people because it's like, well, it's not my fault. My dog's a dominant dog. That's not the case. Um, what we see is people applying cognitive levels to their dogs that are unfair. So dogs actually have a cognitive ability of up to about a year and a half year old child baby, which puts, if we think about it, what are the expectations of our dogs? They're extremely high and often unrealistic. And we would never actually expect a 1.5 year old child to be able to perform in the same way as we would maybe hold a dog accountable for. And on that, we see people setting their dogs up to fail and correcting them in the name of training, which I used to do, but certainly wouldn't do anymore. Because imagine trying to teach any other species. Imagine trying to teach a child where it's like, okay, here's a situation, I'm going to put you in with no guidance, but I'm going to punish every mistake you make. It's a terrible teaching methodology, and it's certainly not a good training model for our dogs. Um, we see people holding their dogs accountable for their behavior when really it is the human that gets to choose where they are, who they're surrounded by, when, where, for how long, what resources they have access to, and everything else in between. That makes us the dominant ones. Whether we like it or not, we are in the dominant position. Our dogs aren't trying to take that from us. Our dogs may well be expressing a frustration at what we're actually facilitating in their life, but that isn't them trying to assert their dominance over us. And punishment methods being applied all too readily. And all that does is it breaks down trust. It teaches the dog, I know well, no, maybe you don't know that they're just communicating their needs, but ultimately what we are saying is you don't get to communicate. We're going to shut that down. And that's why it breaks down trust in us. It breaks down trust in their environment. And it doesn't actually teach them what we do want. So again, not a great training model. So not to mention, and I'm not going to dwell on this, but the dominance theory itself was done in the 70s on wolves, never done on dogs, and has since been disproven on dogs and even on wolves. They live in family groups. They don't live in a linear hierarchy. They're not trying to climb the ladder. And so that myth has really permeated like our culture and set so many people up to fail. So I wanted to get this in there, but I'm not going to dwell on it. Just know it's bullshit. It doesn't actually exist. Your dog isn't trying to dominate you. They're trying to communicate. So the thing is, what it's done as well is it's led us to some ridiculous solutions to training dogs. We've seen dogs deprived of toys in the hope that they'll learn, that they'll get them when they're good, right? Like taking the toys away. Like, you're already in control of the toys. Your dog knew that. We see people trying to force dogs to walk behind them. This one kind of makes me laugh. It's like dogs do not walk naturally in single file. Um, you trying to walk in front of your dog proves nothing to them other than you're restraining them, causing frustration on the lead, probably pissing them off. And then what happens when you let them off the lead? They go in front. No, off you go, mate. Are they suddenly dominant? It's bonkers, this mindset. We've literally seen people try to scurry through doors behind to get in front of their dog to prove that they're dominant. But this one makes me laugh all the time because there's doors all the way through our homes, but apparently the front door's magic because it only applies to the front door. Um, I'm not saying your dog should be allowed to charge outdoors, but I'm saying it doesn't, you asking him to wait doesn't prove that you're dominant. We've genuinely seen another trainer suggest you got to piss on your dog's bowls to show dominance. And we've seen people, other professionals in daycares, for example, put dogs on tables, tiny dogs on tables so they can practice being the dominant one. It's just rubbish. And so if we're as a training methodology, there's some ridiculous notions out there. I hope you can agree, but we're not trying to prove who's dominant here. Look, what it leads to, like I say, is them fearing us, not trusting us, and it certainly doesn't lead to us them respecting us. It leads to them being frustrated because their underlying needs aren't being met. It leads to them being confused because we're looking at it through a lens that our dogs have no cognitive ability to comprehend. So they think we're bonkers when we're doing all that stuff. What is the alternative though? So demonstrating healthy leadership. It sounds really obvious, but healthy leadership with our dogs is really important. We do live in a human world. We've got to set them up to succeed in it. And like I say, already we control where they go, where, when, how long, all of that. Our job as guardians and caregivers is to go, right, okay, I think you're ready for this. And test them a little bit, but certainly not set them up to fail. We want them to grow, but we don't want them to, get pushed so hard that they fail, and certainly don't want to reprimand them for failing. Because if we put them in situations that they're equipped for, and allow them to grow, we are going to see growth, but we're going to see that it happen without breaking their resilience. The big one is train for the situation, not necessarily in the situation. That's a sentence I'd love every dog owner to understand, right? Like if you've got a behavior, a situation that you want your dog to be in regularly. Let's say you're going to consistently have barbecues and you want your dog to, oh, this is it, isn't it? What people do is they go, I don't want my dog to jump up and I don't want to steal food. Brilliant. You've identified what you don't want, but have you clarified with your dog what you do want? Now, do you want them out the way, laying on their bed, chewing a bone? That's a really easy, clear goal for the dog. Um, Maybe you do want them milling around, but maybe that's a big ask for them to be able to mill around freely without stealing food. So set things up so that you've got, okay, well, first few barbecues, maybe not even barbecues, maybe the first few times we have dinner, we get a bed out, a mat out, and we give him a bone and we teach him when we sit at the table, there you go, buddy. And then we might practice having him, once he's finished his bone, being able to walk around, but we don't feed him off the table so he doesn't get to practice what he wants. The point being, really identify what you want to see, practice it before game day. You can't turn up to a match without having done any training and expect it to go well. When we do see unwanted behaviors happen, put a stop to it. We don't want to be permissive. Like it's not about just letting your dogs do whatever they want, but you have to put a stop to it. But when you do so, you don't come at it like it's a personal attack on you and you're trying to reprimand them, causing pain, fear, intimidation that breaks down trust between you and your dog. Remove the dog as far away as needed. And before you reintroduce the dog to the situation, whether that's soon after, a day after, a week after, whenever the dog is ready, reintroduce the dog to a situation or a similar one. But before you do, ask yourself, have I actually prepared my dog? Have I trained for the situation and set them up to succeed? Am I setting them up to succeed? When unwanted behavior happens, remember that their behavior is them communicating how they feel about the situation we put them in. So, as guardians, take responsibility and accountability for that and have a fair and realistic expectation of the dog's behavior. The other thing to note is that when you step in, you do want to actually let them know that you're still there for them. No, you can't do that. You're not, but I am still there for you. You can't reward a negative emotional state. You can't give anybody enough positive reinforcement to make them want to feel like shit again. So if they're communicating because they're stressed, fearful, anxious, frustrated, and you go, "Hey mate, come away, it's okay," you're not going to make them want to feel that way again. If you've had a bad day, someone gives you a beer, and you know it doesn't make you want to have a bad day again. It doesn't work like that. So don't be afraid to go, "Okay, mate, you can't do that," but you're not actually, you're not in trouble. Right? That's the best way to go about it. So it's not dissimilar to humans at the end of the day, because if we had a boss that set us up to fail, punished us when it went wrong, and having not explained things very well in the first place, and then took no responsibility or accountability, we'd hate working for them and probably hate them on a personal level pretty quickly too. So don't be that boss to your dog. Okay, when it comes to obedience, this one might throw people. Obedience is important, but we're going to unpack it a little bit. So people often think that they have a training problem when they don't. So the mindset of like you have a training problem is your dog is just not well trained enough. It ignores multiple important factors as to why the dog behavior is actually happening in the first place. It implies that your dog just isn't listening because, well, it's your fault or theirs. So you've either not trained them well enough, or they're a bad dog and they're being stubborn and a bit disobedient. But remember, going back to why our dogs behave in the first place, any sort of behavior, good or bad, it's a symptom of how they feel in the situation we put them in. So if the dogs aren't responding to what we're saying, it really is important to ask ourselves why. Communication is a two-way street. Dog training very much used to be a monologue. I instruct, you obey, otherwise there will be consequences. Like I said, that's how I used to train. But we have moved away from this mentality because it is really unhealthy and so flawed. So instead, what we encourage is think of it like a monologue. It really does involve a lot more critical thought and understanding. And yes, it is a harder concept for people to understand, but it's an important one because these are animals that live with us every day. So, what does healthy communication look like to our dog? So, when I ask my dog to do something, and I use that word ask on purpose, and they don't do it, I think to myself, okay, why? And there's a few little checkpoints, and I'm sure there's more than what I've got here, but have I actually taught them well enough and generalized this behavior? By generalized, I mean, okay, I may have taught my dog to sit in the home with zero distractions, but I'm asking him to do it at the dog park. No, he's probably not going to be able to do it. It's probably not been trained well enough by me, which is not my dog's fault. And so that's a valid reason not to do it. Is the dog not doing it because they're in pain or discomfort? Hey, buddy, sit. And he's looking at me like, if I sit, I've got really bad hips, mate. Take that into consideration. Is the dog not doing it because they're feeling scared or compromised? If I sit, it actually slows my response time down. And right now I'm feeling quite anxious and there's that scary person over there. So I don't want to sit down. It actually compromises me. Is the dog not doing it because they don't think it's worth it? It goes back to, have I trained it well enough? Have I paid them before? People face rewards out, but if someone stopped paying me to do my job, I'm probably not going to turn up for work again. Is there something in their environment that is affecting their behavior? So, what's going on? Take a look around. Yeah, your dog may be able to sit under quiet circumstances, but when you turn up to the crossroads where there's traffic going everywhere, there's a lot of movement activity, and he might need a few minutes to take stock of what's going on. And sitting down is not really very high on the priority list because he's feeling compromised. So we see a lot of well-trained dogs with poor quality of life, and they still have behavioral issues. Even one of my dogs, I've got two. One of my dogs is much easier to live with than the other because one of them is stressed out more than the other. And he is much better trained than the easy one. The easy one really is old and he doesn't know many cues. He knows come here, he knows sit down. That's probably about it. He knows stay. The other one, really well trained, but struggling, struggles much more than the other one. And personally, I find him more difficult to live with. Because being micromanaged by is not easy. It's not fun. It's not fun to do, and it's not fun to be micromanaged. And that's why when it comes to training, we really go back to before we start communicating with them, we've got to make sure that they're in an emotionally healthy place and they're not compromised because if they are, they can't hear you in the first place. We have to look at why the behaviors are happening in that first place. And I've banged on about this already, and I'm sure I'll carry on as well. The dog's behavior is a symptom of the problem, not the problem itself. We have to understand what is the emotional driver. Is that dog in pain? Is that dog fearful? Is that dog feeling anxious? Is that dog stressed right now? Is it frustration? Is there a physiological thing? Does the dog just need to pee? All of these things are factors into what is driving behavior in the first place. And I really like this image here. So this is, think of it like, okay, you're going up the road and down the bottom of the screen, the lower on the screen you're looking, the better the option of taking for changing behaviors. The higher up the screen you go, the less you want to do it. So the first thing to do, check the health of the dog, the nutrition of the dog, the physical means of the dog. Is the dog in, like say, pain, fear, all of that? Like, is there a health condition going on? Then you've got antecedent arrangements, and that means what in the environment can you change without training the dog, basically, right? Can you close that front door because he's barking all the time? Or can you just maybe put a visual blocker on the bottom half of the door so you can leave it open but allow airflow? Can you deny access to the front room when he barks out the window at 3 p.m. every day when he's unsupervised, right? Like little antecedent arrangements can make a huge difference to your dog's behavior with really least amount of work. So the more we can do that, the more time and effort we actually save people. Then you've got positive reinforcement training, and that is identifying the behavior you want, training it, rewarding it, and really, whatever happens, your dog will choose the behavior he finds most rewarding. Now, if he finds turning the other cheek and walking away from someone he doesn't like really rewarding, he'll do it. But if he's practiced barking and lunging and he knows that's going to make them go away and he finds that rewarding, he'll do that too. So practice the behaviors you want and reinforce them. Then you've got differential reinforcement of alternative behaviors. So if you can't not put the dog in the situation, it's gonna be not a very clean training plan, and that's a lot of real life situations with things that we can't avoid. So you may still see the unwanted behavior come up, but you've got to make sure that you really identify and pay the ones you want that are alternative to the behaviors you don't want. Then we start getting into the murky areas that you don't want to really go down, right? You don't want to just ignore them so that the behavior goes extinct. So removing any sort of attention, rewards, or even punishment until the dog just figures it out. Like, this is a really shit way of teaching anyone. I'm just going to ignore you till you get it right. That's gaslighting. So no, don't do that with your dogs. And like I say, finally, don't go down the route of positive punishment. I'm not saying you can't say no to your dogs. I'm not saying you can't pull them out of situations and put a stop to the behaviors you want, but you don't do two things. You don't come down on them like a ton of bricks that makes you feel unsafe to them, and you don't set them up to fail in the first place to then go on to reprimand them. Okay, when it comes to physical exercise, we see so many people put an over reliance on physical exercise in so many ways. And yes, yeah, look, it's important, but people are doing more for their dogs, like I say, than ever before. People are really trying to get it right for their dogs, but this overemphasis on physical exercise is becoming more and more apparent the more we live, with more we involve them in our lives. So, look, first of all, we need to know what the dog's underlying fundamental enrichment needs are, and they are far more complex than just physical exercise. And if we put too much emphasis on the exercise, then it can result in big areas of the dog's fundamental needs being overlooked and unfulfilled. We see many dogs that are really fit idiots, frankly. Like, they can run all day, but they can't think for toffee. And they're difficult to live with. And if you've got a reactive dog and you're just getting in fitter and fitter and fitter, that's not going to do you any favors. We see many dogs whose mental and emotional health is compromised routinely in the name of physical exercise. I'm going to unpack that further because that's a big one. And that's the one that's really the major problem. We see dogs doing unwanted behaviors because they're stressed and their constant emphasis on physical exercise. So as we try to rectify that issue, we see people, like I say, do more. They stimulate their dog further and higher and harder in the name of tiring them out. And we end up compounding the problem because it often causes adrenal fatigue. Their nervous system is built the same way as yours and mine. And if we're constantly spiking their adrenaline, they're going to struggle to recover, they're going to struggle to regulate, and we end up with mental and emotional health issues compounded by the best thing in their life, which is, the physical exercise. So we've got to be careful the way we do it. So we don't want to compromise your dog's mental and emotional health in at all, but definitely not in the name of physical exercise. So common ways that we see this. So there are more, but these are three common ones that we see. Walking routes, where they regularly display aggression, anxiety, fear, or frustration, they will ruin the dog's day. When most people thought they were doing the right thing by walking the dog. A lot of people believe, oh, well, good dog owners walk the dogs, and they normally believe a specific amount of times as well. It's very much common perception that if you don't walk your dog, you're a bad dog owner. But I would rather see you go and not walk your dog if they're actually struggling on that walk, because you're not bringing joy into their day. You're not doing anything that they want to do. And there are far better ways to spend that time. When we see another one is when we see compulsive behavior. So, for example, obsessive ball play, tail chasing, we see people use laser pens to exercise the dogs. Terrible idea. And they're often downplayed as well and being unimportant or just part of, well, it's just a kelpie. You can't help it, right? That they love doing it, right? They'll make excuses. Oh, he just loves the ball. That isn't healthy. It's not good, right? If that's compulsive, that's addiction. And like anyone that gets addicted to something, they really take joy from that one thing in their life. But off the back of that, they create a very narrow scope of what they take joy from in their life. And over time, it might not seem like a problem. We see a lot of dogs, they play ball really, really like compulsively in the park. And over time, they turn on the other dogs because they're like, no, you're actually just in the way of the one thing I want. I don't want to socialize with you. I'm playing ball. Or, yeah, it's not healthy to have a very narrow scope of enjoyment. So when we are working with those cases, part of it is like, yeah, we need to meet that dog's needs with whatever need that ball was meeting. But we also need to broaden their horizons, but do that in a way that, because their horizons are actually quite small, do that in a way that doesn't compromise them. So it's quite a gradual process of reopening that dog's world back up and moving away from compulsion and addiction. It's hard once you're in, though. We see another one is we see people taking dogs to social places like dog parks so that they can get a run, they just love running. But when they're there, people often make the excuse, oh, we take him to the parks, he loves running, but he also attacks dogs. That's not really in anyone's best interest for your dog to be there, is it? Um, find a place for him to run, but he probably doesn't need to run every day. I don't. I like running, but I don't need to run every day. Um, but avoid taking your dog anywhere where they feel the need to behave in a way that is antisocial or where they demonstrate stress, fear, anxiety. Because again, really well-intentioned things that we see people do with their dogs in the name of physical exercise actually compromise the dogs, and there are far better ways to spend your time. Physical exercise is important. I have said it, but I want to make a point. I'm not brushing it aside. Yeah, a healthy, active body is important, but not more important than their mental and emotional health. It's just not. There are many ways to maintain your dog's physical health. So some ideas might be playing tug, playing ball games, scent games, interactive play like chasey games if your dog likes them, leash walks, trail walks, breed-specific activities like herding, scent work, ratting, or dog sports. They're great outlets that really do meet the physical needs of the dogs, um, but very important no matter which one of them you do, you bear in mind where you do them and all of that so that you're not compromising them. And like I say, exercise is just one of the fundamental needs. It is not the most important one. Here is the a pretty comprehensive list, thanks to the book Canine Enrichment for the Real World, of the underlying fundamental dogs enrichment needs. So you have got health and veterinary, hygiene, diet, nutrition, environmental, calming enrichment, independence, physical exercise, it's there, sensory stimulation, safety, security, instinctual behaviors, foraging, social interaction, mental exercise. Now, if we're just physically exercising the dogs, but we're compromising or neglecting all the others, how is it possible for our dogs to have a good life? Now, there are there is more to dog training than just dog training. And this is what I've learned over the years and kind of how I've done that as well. So over the years, I have sat in with hundreds of hours of vets and veterinary behaviorists, and they've taught me that behavior, they were the ones that really cemented in for me, like behavior is driven by how the dog feels, illness and pain, and to really consider that. It was a big lesson, obviously. Studying applied ethology, which is the study of living things, or dogs in this case, in the human environment. I did that as a study. It taught me to look at the legs. So legs is learning, environment, genetics, and self. And to unpack that a bit more, learning is everything the dog has learned to be positive, and they're going to repeat that, or to be negative and they're going to avoid that in the past. They're learning history. Their environment is everything around them and those within it. Their genetics is their genetic makeup, their blueprint as to what they can potentially achieve. And their sense of self is whether they're in pain, whether they're feeling, how they're feeling, all of that stuff. Those four factors are what underpin every living thing's behavior in every given moment, no matter what species. So my dog's trying to be dominant doesn't come close to scratching the surface. Got to look at the entire legs of the situation as to why the behavior is happening from that holistic point of view. So I also studied applied behavior analysis, which taught me that I'm not in control of others' behavior. It taught me much more than that, but this was a big lesson. I'm only in control of my behavior, and in doing so, I can control elements of the environment, but I'm not in control of others' behavior. Your dogs, like I'm not even 100% in control of my own, because so much of what we do is automatic. Now, what it did do as well was made me very aware of any professional that was offering a guarantee of behavior. That's a big red flag that made me realize that they don't know what the bloody hell they're doing. Studying neuroscience, something I never thought I would be interested in or be doing when I signed up to be a dog trainer many, many moons ago. The nervous system of the dog is remarkably similar to ours. They respond to stress the same way as you and me. In fact, a lot of people don't know this, but a really stressful event can take 72 hours to a week to clear the adrenaline cortisol out of the system if they're afforded the appropriate amount of recovery. So understanding the dog's nervous system through neuroscience was such a cool eye opener for me in so many ways. And yeah, I didn't know I was going to enjoy that so much. Understanding the dog's enrichment needs. Now, that has been the big one that really combined that with the legs. It really changed my perspective on dog behavior. Started seeing it as okay, this is a dog communicating. Dog behavior is them communicating that a need isn't being met based on their legs and based on enrichment needs being either fulfilled or in deficit. So that dog that is barking and lunging has got a learning history that it works. His environment hasn't set him up to succeed. His genetics, well, they've set that up for barking and lunging to be a potential behavior. And his sense of self, well, he's felt like the need to do that. But ultimately, the enrichment need is he didn't feel safe. His sense of safety was actually in deficit. And so that triggered that response. So when we combine those two, it really opened my eyes as to how understanding why a behavior is happening is so, so important. Because if we get that bit right from the beginning, it changes the path for the entire training plan. If I assess at the start, okay, your dog is frustrated, we'll create a training plan to reduce frustration, but that's going to look so different if we've got a dog that's fearful or anxious, because the dog that's frustrated, we want to get that dog in and meet the need, obviously do it safely. But a dog that is anxious or fearful, we're going to take a step back, probably pushing him too hard. Might be seeing the same behavior that we might see barking and lunging on the end of the lead. Two different fundamental needs, two different fundamental training plans. Assess why first. And ultimately, a big learning thing for me, I'm a dog owner. I love my dogs and I live with them every day. I learn a lot from my own dogs, but I also have, like I said, we've worked with 4,000 families in the last, where are we now? 9 years. And we have learned that there is so many ways to do this and not one correct way. Each family, each home, lifestyle, and situation is different. And it does come down to not just a well-trained dog, but creating a healthy and happy home. This isn't common knowledge. Like, unfortunately, it sounds, when I say it out loud, people go, yeah, it's common sense, but it isn't common knowledge. There's a lot of conflicting information out there, and dog trainers and professionals are still pushing old narratives, like I said earlier. There's a few reasons. It makes them money. They don't want to admit they're wrong, even if they do kind of have an inkling. A lot of them don't know they're wrong, though. They don't, there's no need. This industry doesn't make us study, it doesn't regulate us whatsoever. Plus, you've always got old mate down the park telling you, I'll just pin him on the floor. And quick fixes like that, they provide immediate gratification for us, but they rarely resolve the underlying reason and long-term solution, provide long-term solutions. It is easy to blame it on something simple at the end of the day and admitting that. And it is also hard to admit that what this information does, it does kind of shine a light that potentially our dogs aren't actually as happy as they could be in many, many homes, which can be really confronting. But it is important, I think. Okay, say it's not information that is that many pros, professionals are actually across. Some don't have to, well, you don't have to study, and some don't want to study. Some actually claim that qualifications are a waste of time. That's always interesting for me. But they're the ones that are meant to teach the public. So if they're not across it and if they're not sharing this information, then the public haven't got a chance. Social media is a hotbed of quick fixes, which is never really helpful. And by the time I actually see someone, like I say, they're often throwing spaghetti at the wall. They're often trying these quick fixes and they potentially have made it worse. So there's a lot of reasons why it's not common knowledge. But okay, they're the problems. Here's the framework to get it right. We call it the 5 pillars of behavioral health, and it is all encompassing. It takes on board everything that we've learned over the years. So all those hard lessons, we put it all in one place. So we've got the enrichment needs. These are the 5 pillars. We're going to meet the enrichment needs of the dog, afford them sleep, rest, and recovery, create healthy eating patterns, healthy exercise patterns, and healthy communication, management, and leadership. So going back to, we've covered the enrichment, but I'm not going to go through them all again, but every single one of them is important to be met and considered and should be front of mind as to how we actually do that. But not all of them are made equal. So we have created a little hierarchy of enrichment needs so that we know what to prioritize. So this is similar to the road thing that we saw earlier, but at the bottom we've got our biological needs, so making sure that they aren't in danger, that they've got good nutrition, water, sleep, everything is good in terms of their health. Then you've got to meet their emotional needs. Love, trust, consistency, familiarity, feeling heard, and sense of security. Safety and security aren't the same. Safety is whether or not they're actually in danger. Security is whether or not they feel in danger. Now, of course, if they're physically in danger, you prioritize that regardless of how they feel. But if they are actually safe, but day to day they don't feel it, that is where you start. Feeling safe is the foundation of behavioral health. Then you've got your social needs, right? So a lot of people will put that, so oh, my dog needs to socialize. Yes, he does. But first and foremost, with you, build strong bonds with you and those close to them, the friends. Intimate stuff like, patting, grooming, the things where you're actually in their personal space, they need to be prioritized. And then play. Play is reserved for those they are familiar with. I'll play with my best friends. I might be playful with strangers and acquaintances, but I'll genuinely play with those I trust. Acquaintances, strangers, great. Get to know them, learn how to respond well to them. But I think a lot of people are putting emphasis on my dog's got to go and meet all of these strangers and acquaintances and putting the stuff that really matters when it comes to social needs on the back burner. Then you've got esteem needs, so confidence, achievement, problem solving, learning, and training. Like they're really cool things for us to do with our dogs, and they make them feel great. Then finally, novelty choices. So this is ultimately what we see a lot of people do when it comes to enrichment. They give them a Kong, or they give them a Licky Mat, they give them a choice of food. That's lovely. That's great. But as you can see through this pyramid, unless the foundations underneath have been set, none of it really matters. You know, that if they don't feel if they feel safe but they're not, that's not bloody good enough. You need to make that better. If they are safe, they feel safe, but their social needs aren't being met, you're going to get a lot of frustration, a lot of anxiety. If they are safe, they feel safe, their social needs are being met, but they're not getting fulfilled on a cognitive level and on an esteem level, then it's still going to see a lot of frustration. So start at the beginning and work your way up through your dog's enrichment needs. Learn what your dog needs are and start there. So this is really important. And it might sound really obvious when we say it out loud, but we actually don't get to decide what is enriching for our dogs. They do. That's up to them. And they will tell you. They will tell you through their behavior. So I'll say it again, their behavior is a symptom of what they're going through and how they're feeling. Our job is to listen. And if we listen to them whisper, if we listen to the subtle communication, they don't have to shout. By the time we're working with people, often the dog has, we've ignored the whispers, not willingly, but we often have. We've just not heard what they're saying. And so people call us when the dog is really shouting. And that is the unwanted behavior that the owner didn't want to see. And that's why when we come in, we go, cool, no, we don't want to see that. But let's work together so that everybody's needs in this house are being met. We need to work on the humans' needs being met. We need to work on the dog's needs being met. When it comes to sleep, rest, and recovery. So really, really underestimated how important this is. More and more, we're seeing people wanting to do all the things with their dogs and keep them busy, like I said earlier. But a dog that can't settle isn't happy. A dog that can't settle is telling you they actually don't feel comfortable enough to drop their guard and relax. And you might well be looking at an agitated dog, a stressed dog, not just energetic and excited. Their symptoms can look really similar. You know, the excessive barking, attention seeking, restlessness. Before you jump to the conclusion that you have an energetic dog, think, when was the last time you had a good sleep? And they need 16 to 18 hours a day. They also need to fall into sleep cycles of at least an hour long to start producing restorative endorphins and hormones to repair and restore effectively. So if your dog isn't getting that and you're still seeing restlessness and you're walking him loads and exercising him loads and he's getting the ball, but you're still seeing all of those kind of high drive behaviors, you probably aren't looking at a situation where you need to do more. You need to teach them how to do less. But it is a learnt behavior as well, because in order to drop their guard, they have to trust their environment. In order to trust their environment, they have to feel safe. And so we go back to safety being the foundation of behavioral health. A tired dog, though, is the same as a tired human. You know, they don't get to recover. They don't get to reflect and process information. A lot of learning is done in reflection of the moment, not in the moment itself. So you've got a tired dog, you don't go out and train him because he can't even think, he can't reflect, he can't learn. So you've got to let him sleep before you go out to train, like a kid in the classroom. You see irritable, stressed out behaviors, sensitive, reactive, barking, attention seeking. They're unpredictable. They struggle to regulate their emotions. Tired dog is shit, just like a tired human. But then we go into healthy diet and eating patterns. Now, this one I don't think is underestimated. I think a lot of people are across it, but it doesn't take away its relevance and importance. A healthy diet, just like you and me, right? Like good food, it's going to help for healthy emotional stability and emotional regulation. Gut health, really important. We see a huge correlation with poor gut health and behavioral issues. It's time and time again. What a lot of people don't know is serotonin, one of the main regulators, endorphins we have for regulating our emotional system. Most of it is produced in the dog's gut, not in the brain. And so poor gut health can often lead to that emotional instability. And so the other thing when it comes to patterns is they love predictability. Predictability makes them feel safe. Patterns help them learn predictability. Now, you never want to set a pattern that's so rigid that you've got a dog that's so dependent on it, they're brittle. But you want to create patterns where they know something's going to come, not necessarily to the minute or to the hour. But hey, look, I'm going to get fed twice a day. My dogs will get fed anything between 5 a.m., 4 a.m. sometimes, and 9. And it's the same in the evenings. But they know as soon as I stand up and walk towards the kitchen and pick up the bowls, yes, meal time. And they know it's coming every day. And they're very, very stable about it. It's awesome. That creates optimism, doesn't it? Like these little things that they look forward to every day. Um, they really create that dog that's like, oh, yeah, good things are going to happen. Signs that your dogs need help in this area. So grazing on their food, not eating it all in one sitting, eating their food in the middle of the night, picking up their food and eating it where they can see you, or sometimes even just taking it away where they can't see you or you can't see them, needing to be hand fed, and gut health again. Regularly, if you consistently see more than 3 poos a day, it's a problem. Obviously, if you give them a bone or something and you see more than 3 poos in a day, context matters. Excessive flatulence is also an issue. Uh, don't normalize it. It's not normal. Um, Unless you can say, yeah, you've got a really poor diet, but then expect the consequences behaviorally of a poor diet. Um, you know, it's just one of those things that people will brush under the carpet. Oh, he just farts a lot, but he also launches at other dogs and he can't regulate his emotions. They're probably working together. How to create a healthy diet and eating patterns. So how to. So when it comes to diet, as good a quality of food as you can afford. We've all got different budgets, but as good a quality as you can afford, you do the best you can. Regular feeding patterns and routines, like I say, nothing too rigid, but definitely have something. And predictable and safe feeding area and feeding time. So we want to avoid resource guarding, but we want to avoid our dogs feeling uncomfortable when they eat. So we often put a bowl somewhere where it's really convenient for us in the corner out the way. But does that make our dog actually feel good eating there? Do they feel safe? Do they feel like it's under pressure from, maybe the parrots that want to come and steal the food or another dog or cat in the house? Like we want to, mealtime's meant to be the best time of day every day. And if we start making it stressful, rushed, hurried, pressured, we're really missing a trick there, missing an opportunity. Um, how to ensure the dog's physical needs with healthy exercise. So things to avoid: avoid compulsive and addictive behavior. Avoid so when we're working with them, when we're playing with them, exercising them, coherent is healthy. So talk to your dog, ask them to do something, and if they can't hear you, again, go back to what we said earlier about obedience. Why? Is it because you're overstimulated and you can't actually think right now? Because what you don't want to do is push the exercise to the point where you've gone mental. You want to avoid sharp turns and impacts. Ask any vet how many cruciates they have to do because the dog's chasing the ball. That's expensive for you financially, but it's also expensive for the dog because if you've got a dog that's run, 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 and then all of a sudden busts his cruciate and has never learned how to settle and relax, your life's going to be hell for 6 weeks. Even still, just avoid the injury. Like, yeah, play ball, but avoid those sharp turns and impacts. Activate the brain as much as the body. So going back to coherent is healthy. Talk to your dog through exercise. Play games. Play is meant to be a series of invite back off between two parties. And it's healthy as long as they're listening to one another. So when one says, yeah, let's go, yeah, cool, or no, but when one says no, the other one has to listen. The moment they don't, that's when you get unhealthy play. So if I go, hey, buddy, get it, wait, but he keeps getting it, oh, we're going to work hard on the wait because that's the bit you need help with. And yeah, we can activate your body in doing so and get some physical exercise doing it, but we're not going to teach go very much. We're going to teach wait and we're going to use go as a reward for waiting. Tap into breed specific activities. If you've got a herding dog, get them herding. If you've got a ratter, tell them, give them an opportunity to replicate ratting. Don't go kill them rats. Engage the nose. That's so important for any dog breed. And their nose, engage in their nose. It's how they see the world. We know that sniffing lowers their heart rate. It helps them regulate, it helps them de-stress, but it also builds confidence and resilience and optimism and independence and problem solving. And so engaging the nose has countless benefits. Play in socially appropriate places. So be considerate of others and your dog's preferences. So this is a big one, and I would love anybody that listens to this to take this on board going forward. If you've got a ball obsessed dog or a dog that wants to play fetch, but other dogs in the park, let your dog play with the other dogs. And if he doesn't want to be there and play with the other dogs, don't be there. Ball is a one-player game. and you are in a social environment where you're kind of be polite if your dog was social. I relate it back to a pub, right? You're sitting in a bar having a drink, and everybody's having a good time, having a beer, having a chat, and then one guy walks in off his nut, just going crazy, pinging up and down, side to side. Maybe, he's brought some class A's into a place that, it's completely inappropriate, always inappropriate, but completely inappropriate to be just darting around. He's not reading the room. You're going to get conflict. And so when you're in a social situation, I beg of people to just be considerate of others. And just because your dog likes playing fetch, if it's agitating others, go and find somewhere appropriate to do it or a time that's appropriate to do it. And it'll avoid resource guarding as well. It'll prevent your dog. You're not just compromising others, you're compromising your dog as well. So don't do it. If it's just be present, be aware of your surroundings. So benefits of healthy exercise, your relationship, communication, it grows. You decrease unwanted behaviors because their needs are actually being met. Their health improves, of course. You see better emotional regulation with that on-off style of game. You see dog go up, come down, go up, come down, and they get to practice emotional regulation through healthy play. You see their confidence and optimism grow, and you see their resilience grow. And okay, when it comes to communication, what does this look like practically? So respect your dog's opinion. Like I say, ask them, and if they don't do it, ask why. Not saying just let it go. And sometimes, absolutely, safety says, I've got to move the dog. You've got to do this. Sorry, mate. But that's your go-to way of communicating. Do it. That's really unhealthy. Um, Guide and shepherd, but don't bully. We meant to steer the ship in this human world, but don't bully them into it. Give them agency and control. Give them autonomy, but set them up to succeed and set others up to succeed. If you're walking down a busy street, don't let them zigzag. It's rude. It's just going to piss people off. So having times where you go, hey, mate, with me, and yeah, okay, we're in an open space, off you go. So being considerate of others where you give them control and agency. Don't reprimand or hold them morally accountable. So take ownership and learn from the mistakes. If something goes wrong, yeah, it went wrong. You learn from it and you try to get it right in between then and the next time you're in that similar situation. So you do that by training for the situation, not necessarily in it. And finally, you teach with an emphasis of what you want rather than what you don't want. We do live in a human world. We are already the dominant one, and they are in our care. They're not here to obey us. Remembering that's so important. So when we implement those 5 pillars, what we see people move away from that old school understanding that holds people back from really connecting with their dogs and allowing their dogs to live the best lives. But we have a dog who doesn't demonstrate anywhere near the normal rate of unwanted behaviors because they're not stressed, anxious, frustrated, fearful. We see dogs that are physically healthy. We see dogs that are emotionally stable and mentally fulfilled. We see dogs that are more resilient, optimistic, so they respond to stressful things in their life a lot better. And we see dogs who are just thriving, not just surviving. And get along. We see we get a dog that we truly love. We trust them more. We can communicate with them, which builds our bond even more. We get a dog that loves us and trusts us even more and feels heard by us. And we get a dog who gets to live their best life. We create that bond that is just really meaningful and deep. And ultimately, it is just a far better, healthier, and happier home. You know, it sounds like a lot of work, and it can be. Bringing a dog into your life does bring challenges that shouldn't be taken lightly in the first place. They did not choose to come into your life. They don't owe you anything. They are in our care, and they deserve for them to they deserve us to do things to the best of our ability. And we owe it to ourselves for our own health and happiness because working with them not only improves their quality of life, but reduces unwanted behaviors, which makes it a lot easier for us. And what I've learned over the years is taking shortcuts, like using punishment, papering over cracks without looking at underlying causes of behavior. It provides temporary relief at best, but compounds problems more often than not. And either way, you will have to, if you do that, you will have to readdress the future issue in the future. And it won't be as easy as if you did it when you first saw it. Can people do it alone? Yeah, of course, they do it all the time. And especially if you've got this framework, if you can take this and run with it, go for it. That's what it's here for. Um, Not everyone can, of course, though. That's why I have a job. People sometimes more experienced, some people want a little bit more hand holding. Some people just simply can't see how this looks in a practical fashion for their individual circumstances, which is fair. And some dogs are just harder than others. That's the truth of it. Like, not all dogs are easy. Some breeds are traditionally harder than others. Some individuals just tough to live with. So there's no shame in getting help if you need it. Does it take lots of time? Because it sounds like a lot of work. When you're around your dog, you are training them whether you like it or not, whether you know it or not, whether you mean to be or not. You are training your dog whenever you're around them. Some dogs require you to set extra time aside. So those more difficult dogs, those dogs that you've got a lot, they've got a lot to learn, you've got a lot to teach, you've got a lot of bonding to do. You need to set aside extra time than you right now than you may do other dogs or in the future. But for a lot of dogs, training can be implemented into our daily routine without extra time being allocated. We all, if we've got a dog, it's pretty normal for people to allocate some degree of time to them during the day. And the key is finding the things that are causing the problems and contributing to what you don't want, cutting them out. That will save you a lot of time. A lot of people are innocently doing things that actually make things harder. So stop it. We'll identify that in the assessment. Um, but replacing that time, it's not like, yeah, okay, 20 minutes free every day. No, you still have to spend time with your dog, but invest that time into things that are actually going to provide value and get you down to the path to where you want to be. So work smarter, not harder. Big question I get asked all the time, will they just grow out of it? No, not likely. Age is not what teaches the dog experiences. So if your dog is getting older but continues to be exposed to the current situations that facilitate unwanted behavior, and your dog continues to practice those unwanted behaviors, they simply get better at what you do not want. They don't just grow out of it. You got to change what they're exposed to, what they're learning, what you're teaching them. You got to change how you approach it. Otherwise, it won't go away. It will get worse. Is it worth the money? Is dog training worth the money? I'm biased, so I'm going to say yeah. But look, the reality is that some people just simply can't afford it. But if you can, then I would suggest doing it because an earlier the better. Because the earlier you step in and address the issue, the quicker and easier it is to resolve it. You will have to put in less time, energy, and finances. Um, if you're in the foundation setting stage, then the resolving it stage. But no matter how far down the path you are, the earlier the better. So we always should have started yesterday, but now is better than never. And how can we specifically help? So we do offer a few different services. We've got one-on-one in-person training across Sydney. We've got one-on-one in-person online training via Zoom. We have group socialization classes, that was a mouthful, on Saturday mornings, where we hire out a daycare in the eastern suburbs. And we have the Bondo Behaviours Training Rewards Club membership. So what that includes is access to a personally assigned private support channel. So a messaging channel where you can reach out, contact me, get feedback, send me updates, ask questions. Basically just, hey, what's going on here with my dog? You get access to discounts on ongoing services. You will get a training plan. So that'll be sent to you in a couple of different formats. You'll get goal setting and accountability coaching. You'll get access to our online learning platform full of webinars and other resources for you to learn at your own pace. You'll get discounts on training leashes and equipment in our store, but you'll also get discounts on heaps of other awesome training stores and friends of Bondi Behaviourist. You'll get discounts on treats and food. You'll get discounts on all kinds of things, toys and shoes, and so much more. So if you wanted to make a start, you can always just book in another. If you just wanted to say, get to know me and talk through your personal situation in a little bit more detail, you can do a free 30-minute initial assessment. And there's a link to that on our website. And you can book in a time and we will talk one-on-one about your situation and find out what is the best solution for you and what's going to suit you and your needs best. Our socialization classes could be perfect for so many dogs because we offer them for all ages. And we do host age appropriate classes. So they're just really small. We set all the dogs up to succeed. And the point is learning how to socialize your dog. So, how to meet your dog's social needs, how to create socially appropriate behaviors. They're not appropriate for overly fearful or aggressive dogs. If that is the case for you, I would suggest working one-on-one before that and getting ready for those classes in the future. But they're just $40 and you can drop in and drop out whenever you want. Um, our online training program is perfect for anyone looking for one-on-one training over Zoom online. You can do that obviously anywhere in the world. And it's a starter program for our membership. So it just consists, it's nice and easy. You do a 1 hour, sorry, we do 1 2 hour online initial consultation over Zoom. So we'll talk through everything. We'll assess um, what it is going on in detail. And then we'll go through in detail about what your plan is, so how to meet your dog's needs. And then you'll get 2 weeks complimentary membership access. So you'll be able to continue to get coaching from me for the next 2 weeks for free before your membership rolls in. But of course, you can cancel anytime. And then finally, we've got a one-on-one in-person starter program there where I work with people across Sydney, most of Sydney. And that consists of a 2 hour initial consultation where I come to you. We assess the situation, we talk through it. What are the training goals? What are we working with? Find out why those behaviors are happening. And then we lay out the foundations of a training plan and we begin to implement it. We also, part of this program also includes a 45-minute follow-up session where I come back out to you and we build wherever we are at the time. It's not like, okay, session one, we're going to do X, Y, Z, and session two, we're going to do the next steps, because the reality of working with people and their dogs is every single one is different and the starting line is different for everyone. And so we tailor it to you. We ask that those sessions get used within 4 weeks because it includes a 4 week complimentary membership to the Training Rewards Club before that rolls on. So yeah, that, and the usual price for that is $750 Australian when paid in full. But for watching this webinar and workshop, I'm offering $50 off the starter program. So this can be applied to both options of pay in full or the payment plan, and simply use the code BB50 when paying for the program on checkout. The link will be emailed to you after you finish watching the presentation. So I really hope you've enjoyed the workshop. My goal here today was to highlight the common mistakes I often see so that you could avoid making them yourselves, and my framework that underpins everything that I teach, every client that I have the privilege to work with. The lessons I've learned along the way have been hard-earned, and I do hope that in teaching you this here today, it can help you avoid making the same mistakes and getting there faster than it took me. And I really do appreciate your attention today, and I really hope you've enjoyed the workshop.